It's diverse, and everybody is accepting of people's diversity. So you've got cats that are more, straight in the jazz world, living in just the jazz world, and then you have people that are into experimenting with sounds, which we do some. We experiment with timbre.
One of my favorite parts is that there's no judgment. There's really no judgment about what you do. You may think something's bad, but everyone else just has your back. I mean, they've got your back, and they support you in your freedom, and whatever you want to say, you're allowed to say it. You don't have to play the right notes in this group. You can explore, and you can play what you want, what you feel, and that this group allows musicians to be very expressive, and I really like that about it.
You bring music into this group and no one looks down at it. They try to put their all into it. And regardless of where you're coming from as a composer, people are open to it. And I mean, I think it should represent, to me, it represents what society should be, what human beings should be good at what you do, work hard at what you do. But when somebody brings something to the table, you just don't immediately throw it away, because either you're not familiar with it, or you don't listen to it, you don't like it, or whatever.
The freedom that I'm allowed to have, and that everybody is allowed to have, especially with what my rig is for this group, with the mallet cat and the Moog and the Prophet and all the synth sounds. But playing it like a vibraphonist, it's a unique rig, and there's a lot of possibilities. And I'm just able to explore that with, and everybody's just, they support that.
My bigger artistic outlet right now, and I absolutely love still having that and not just worrying about making money. And I'm sitting here like playing music that I really love and that I like studied for years, and that's really awesome.
All of those really heavy, hardcore jazz elements, and mixing them in with funk and R&B and even rock and roll and gospel. And
I feel it's my outlet of playing something different than Latin music. I get to know each one of the musicians that are in this band through their music, more than the hanging around and everything. Is more than their music. Their music teach me a lot about them.
As far as from a recording standpoint, this sort of music is a lot more fun, because it's just like record and go, yeah, cool. It's not like tearing it all apart to a million pieces. We did a little bit of that, but not so much as pop music.
And just like this extreme diverse musical backgrounds of everybody, really just listening to you guys, that's inspiration enough.
I pride myself on having like a diverse repertoire of music that I listen to. I listen to all kinds of things, Irish music, I listen to Lebanese Muslim music, Islamic music. I listen to, I listen to 80s rock and roll. I listen to metal. In jazz, it's the same thing. I listen to a lot of different kinds of music. I just think it's important, because I'm being an educator. You need to be, I'm a musician, right? So if I'm teaching people how to do music, I need to teach people how to do music. So I need to be familiar with it. And jazz to me is eclectic. So the idea is to be relevant to the time, and as a composer to be relevant to what you dig and what you like. I mean, and then try to bring that out in your music.
My biggest influences were Neil Peart and Chad Smith. But then starting to get into jazz in high school and college, like Elvin Jones was like the biggest influence, I think, at least in terms of like energy and filling up space.
Outside of jazz, I grew up listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin and Rush and other progressive rock groups like Yes and King Crimson, and all of that sort of experimental realm led me to fusion, which led me to Mahavishnu Orchestra, Return to Forever. And then that's about when I discovered those groups, that's when I started to really explore more of traditional jazz. And that led me to being a drummer first, Tony Williams and Elvin Jones, and piano players, of course, like Herbie Hancock and McCoy Tyner.
Chuck Leavell, he played with the Allman Brothers. He's actually he's the guy that plays the solo in the song Jessica. And then one day when I was about in the 8th grade, my dad said, "You got to listen to this YouTube video of this guy," and it was Oscar Peterson. And then from there, it was just the beginning of the end. But yeah, Oscar Peterson, this chick Corea Bill Evans, there's a lot of big influences in what I do.
A lot of the influences that I draw from come from a lot of recordings that I've heard with Robin Eubanks and Steve Turre and Elliot Mason, and a lot of these styles of music where you have an acoustic trombone mixed with electronic elements. And I think the sound of the trombone can lend itself to just about any kind of setting.
I was definitely a metalhead in high school, so I've listened to a lot of different kinds of metal from like past and present, but I've been listening to a lot of the guitar player Pliny, who's a guy who's been working with Tim Miller a lot actually, which is cool to see those two worlds coming together.
Mostly Latino music, of course, and I think the mixture of the Afro-Cuban music, mostly Chucho Valdés, Iraqué, and all these people that were, I don't know, big influences on the people that try to do Latin jazz here in the United States, so mostly Cubans, and all the Cuban wave from the 70s until the 90s.
This is incredibly difficult music. Even the easiest thing, quote unquote, that we play from a technical standpoint is incredibly difficult. I think, because not only are you trying to play notes, but you're trying to capture the essence of the music. And I think you got to do that to show respect to it. So you're like trying to capture the essence of it, but then stay true to yourself. Because everybody that writes in this group, which is everybody that writes for this group, they want you to be you, you know? And so you have to respect yourself and respect the fact that people want you to be yourself, but you also have to respect the essence of what's going on. So that's a big challenge for anybody, no matter who you are. I think that's a big challenge.
I would say probably under just the amount of things that could go wrong.
Man, these tunes are pretty hard. I thought we might be able to come down and run a couple of them and be done, but like really like it's taken a little bit longer, like really taking time and doing a couple takes with these songs and kind of seeing how everyone interacts with each other in the studio compared to out on a gig. It's a little bit different vibe, and you're getting a little bit different things out of people. Especially since we haven't played together in a while. Coming back, it's been really interesting to hear kind of how everyone's playing has been developing, myself included.
I would say the biggest challenge to putting this music together and recording this music is trying to capture some of those freer and looser elements that we so heavily thrive and depend on in live settings. And being able to narrow down solos and song lengths and everything else to a song that would be under 8 minutes, that feels like a chore, you know, or having to say, oh, I only get 3 choruses or something like that, and that's something that I just haven't had to think about before. But it ended up all working out, and it ended up all coming together.
I would say this is like the hardest music that I've ever had to play and perform. And it's really just an honor to be here and to be asked to do this because it was definitely a bit out of my comfort zone at first. And it maybe still is, but it's been quite the growing experience. And I would say for me personally, the hardest part of this session is yet to come when I try to track Oscar's tune.
Oscar's tune. That's just the sheer tempo of that tune makes it hard to record and makes it it's very hard. It's very rhythmically. You have to be rhythmically precise, and I had to do several takes on the same thing because it wasn't as precise as it needed to be. So that was a challenge.
Mapale. Mapale is a challenging chart, and I think all in the room felt the same pressure. So that was probably just that track, I think, is the biggest challenge, I would say.
Precision, like even though we have been rehearsal, we know most of the tunes and everything, it has to be a machine, and it's really nice to try to balance machine, like all the mechanic stuff of the music, but also all the soul of the music. So that, balancing both.
You know, when you're tracking this caliber of music, there's a lot to process and think about along the way, but at the same time, you have to kind of just let it flow and not think about it too much because that can get you into trouble.
When I bring stuff in or when I bring music in or whatever, I do not like to put parameters on a musician. And deep down, I know that that musician on their respective instruments is going to bring something to it that I couldn't imagine. And so I was surprised by, I could never have dreamed of some of the things that people bring to the music. I want them to be themselves, but it's a surprise when you're looking at something somebody plays, it's like, man, I would have never thought of that in 100,000 years. And it brings a new life and it changes your music in a good way. Like I said, it's like humanity should do that, right? I mean, the music should do it, but music should reflect humanity. So when somebody brings something to it, you're like, wow, man. But you know, if you're open to it and just let people be people and let musicians be musicians, you'll be surprised. And that's what surprised me, is what people were able to I was like, man, this music just has a whole new meaning to it. You know what I mean? Just because people were like, bam, I was like, man, that's unbelievable. So that.
For me, the speed at which we busted out this hard music was like super surprising. I didn't think that I would personally be done tracking by now. You know, like I practiced, but the music's just so hard and it's complicated, and like most of my recording experience has been with just easier music to play from a drumming standpoint, and those sessions took a while. So.
Well, it was all a surprise because I had never heard a note of this music prior to you guys coming to the studio, or prior to the band coming in the studio. So, you know, each track was a surprise, frankly. It was all like, okay, what are we doing now? You know, from Latin to straight ahead to hard rock, you know, there's a lot of stylistic diversity. So, generally speaking, I think it was all a surprise.
Surprisingly enough, when we would go back into the control room after tracking a couple takes, we'd listen back, and you know, what I was hearing coming out of the monitors was completely different from what I experienced in the live room. And it was for the better too. I was surprised at the results that we were able to get so quickly.
I arrived to the session with let's do it. And I end up totally excited. Like each one of the songs, each one of the moments that we shared there just gave me more energy to do more. So right now I'm like, let's record another album right now. You know?
a collaborative faculty and student award from the College of Arts and Sciences. And I put together a budget and a proposal, and it took a great deal of time and work to get it together because you've got to spell it out for people who have no idea what we're doing. I remember talking to the dean. The dean was like, "It just looked like you guys wanted us to pay for a record." And I was like, "Well, yeah, but there's more to that than just some guys getting around." And I said, "Who benefits from this?" Yeah, I mean, I benefit from working with you guys. The students benefit from working with you guys, but this is a pro project. This is not some garage band, blah, blah, blah. And they saw the merit in it, even though they didn't understand what it was.
With me on the kind of the finish line of getting out of my undergrad for music, it's cool to be around a bunch of guys who are playing a lot more than me and have a lot of different influences.
I think this can benefit the university because students will see, maybe students who haven't even come to the university will see what's going on here. And how much more can you benefit of a university than getting more students to come and take advantage of the program? So from a sort of promoting the environment, I think it's great because it shows you what we can do, right? And then for people who are already in the school, well, here it's the real world experience of actually making a recording. And it's something that can be shown from now until forever because it's recorded, right? You can say, look, this is what we did. This is some of the work that we did here. So it's sort of proof positive of what the school's capable of, which is then also an attractant for students to come and join the program and get the same experience.
So I did a lot of back and forth trying to explain to them what this is. And I'll do a lot on the back end. I've got the narrative and report on what we're doing, and I'm keeping record of everything so that they can see just how much work something like this takes and how important it is to the students, to us. It's really bringing in also its students, its professionals, its faculty, and you're producing a project that is a culmination of generations, experiences, cultures, and to me, that's worth anything that the school has invested in it. I hope that when they get the project or they see the project when it's finished and all of the stuff that went into it, that they recognize how important this project is and that they also recognize that projects like this in the future should also be funded.
Well, having the students here, of course, it's sort of what I'm working for with students in general, is to get them in the studio, get them doing stuff. So having them here was great because, as we call this is the hot seat, and I'm putting my audio production students in the hot seat to do the work. That's the real world experience. That's the apprenticeship that really is what makes, I think, great audio producers and engineers and people who work in the studio. It's apprenticeship. We try to recreate that as much in the classroom as possible, but there's nothing like a real session. So bringing kids into the real session, it's like, welcome to the real world. We're doing it right now. Here you go. Press the button, let's go.
So this is my first semester with him. We had kind of been working on things in class that pretty much pertain to what we're doing right now. This is just kind of going from learning about it to having to really do it.
Oh, I mean, Ashley's, he's just a total professional. He's quick, he knows what to do, he's very efficient in what he does, and he knows how to make it sound good, and he knows where to place microphones, the little nuanced details like that.
It was my first time meeting Ashley and watching him work, and he's quick, he's smart, and yeah, he's been really easy to work with and fun.
Working here at Audio Grotto and with Ashley and with his crew and his assistants, it's been probably one of the easiest recording sessions on that end, dealing with the engineers and the people that the recording staff, they really understand the musical mindset where we are coming from and how to capture everyone's sound.
I think it was awesome. Like, of course, he's a professional, but not only that, he gave us the opportunity to be who we are. He does his job amazingly, but we were still ourselves. We sound as we were supposed to sound and know as he wanted, so that is amazing. An excellent space, an excellent. It's not just professional, it's more than that. It's like a fellowship and understanding of what the music wants to be in that moment.
Oh, Ashley's great. I'm really glad that in the past year at NKU, he's been put onto the faculty, and being able to work with him inside school has been awesome. And then to come here in a more real life scenario is a lot of fun to kind of see how Ashley works in a real session, and not just walking through and kind of talking about sessions. Actually being able to be on the ground and watch everything happen and be a part of it has been really cool.
Ashley's all pro, but he's also giving. He's a very giving person. I've worked with tons of engineers. I've done over 100 sessions, and everything from movies to commercials to records, as a soloist, as a composer, arranger. And so you work with a lot of different kinds of engineers, but Ashley is giving, and he's not a jerk. I mean, and he doesn't have an ego. He knows his stuff, but he's not throwing it in your face. And then, so what's happening is the students, assistants that are working with him are growing so much and quickly. And it's all due to him. The space is good. It's a good space to record in, but they just made it easy. They just make it easy. And when especially if you're trying to do something hard with 8 people or 7 people or whatever, I mean, you really want it to be easy. And so that's been a really cool thing about it.